Welcome to the Reddit mic. Today we're taking a close look at how couples really face life's curveballs, the unexpected, the unknown, sometimes the really painful stuff. We've gathered some incredibly raw stories from online forums, people sharing dilemmas with huge personal stake. Let's dive in. I think really compelling narratives for you. They genuinely make you question what people are prioritizing in their relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
And, how quickly insecurities can just spiral completely out of control.
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, first up, we've got a story from a 27-year-old woman. We'll call her OOP, the original poster.
Wait.
She described her 2-year relationship as, quote, close to perfect. Sounds good, right? But then a seemingly innocent run-in at a grocery store with her ex. He's also 27. Triggers something.
Well,
bizarre.
it always starts small, doesn't it?
It seems to. Her boyfriend, who's 28, makes this kind of sarcastic comment afterwards about the ex being nice. She doesn't think much of it at first.
Just a throwaway comment.
Exactly. But then these subtle things start escalating. A few weeks later, she catches her boyfriend scrolling through the ex's Facebook page.
Oh, boy.
His excuse. Just curious.
Of course. Just curious, famous last words sometimes.
Totally. And from there, it snowballs into this full-blown social media obsession. He friends the ex, follows him on Instagram, Twitter. Everywhere. And actively comments on his posts, which, by the way, the ex apparently rarely responds to.
Right. One-sided.
Very. Then, somehow, he convinces a mutual friend, this guy Luke, to invite him to the ex's weekly virtual hangouts.
Whoa, okay. That's crossing a line.
Big time. And he just dismisses OP's concerns, calls it no big deal. And then, to make it even weirder, the boyfriend starts talking about changing his career path to match the ex's.
Wow.
And making these snide comments about maybe the ex's dad is funding his lifestyle.
Okay, so this rapid shift, it isn't just curiosity, is it? It's screaming, anxiety-driven obsession.
Yeah.
What we're likely seeing here is the boyfriend grappling with some pretty deep insecurities, right? He fixates on this imagined ideal, the ex.
Right.
He projects this version of himself onto the ex that he feels he needs to be. But when he inevitably feels he can't measure up or feels threatened, that frustration turns outward, often as aggression or devaluing his current partner, OOP. It's a pattern you see perceived threats to self-worth, triggering some really destructive behavior.
So it's less about the actual ex and more about the boyfriend's internal battle being projected onto him. That's fascinating. And it definitely didn't stop there.
No.
His behavior towards OOP herself got increasingly hostile. Passive-aggressive comments started.
Like what?
Things like suggesting she wouldn't have dated him if her ex hadn't moved abroad, accusing her of saying no to him, including sex, but implying, she wouldn't have said no to her ex.
Ouch. That's low.
Really low. He sulked over a gift she still had from the ex, but the real kicker, he ditches her one night to hang out with the ex.
Seriously, just leaves her.
Yep. And when she finally, understandably, snaps and yells, "You might as well date my ex instead," he takes that incredibly vulnerable private moment
and uses it against her.
Weaponizes it, tells the ex what she said just to humiliate her.
Wow. That's incredibly cruel.
Yeah.
He's not trying to connect with the ex. He's seeking validation or maybe trying to diminish OOP by elevating the ex in this weird way.
Seems like it. And the situation just keeps spiraling. OP actually tries to salvage things, suggests couples counseling, asks him to cut ties with her ex.
A reasonable request, you'd think.
You would think. His reaction, gets angry, claims she's the one with jealousy issues.
Oh, the projection again.
Totally. Insists the ex is now a good buddy and she can't dictate his friendships. Then, a week later, at another hangout with the ex and friends, he starts loudly complaining about OOP's insecurity.
In front of everyone.
To the point where the ex himself and Luke actually tell him to stop, which, of course, just makes him angrier.
Unbelievable.
Then the obsession takes another turn. He becomes, quote, super interested in OOP's past sex life with the ex.
Oh, no.
Constantly asking who is better, did she do this or that with the ex? It gets so disturbing, he even asks the ex directly about it and brags about his own sex life to his friends.
Okay, this is deeply inappropriate and just. Deeply insecure behavior, crossing so many lines.
And then the final straw. The ex eventually tells OOP that her boyfriend made a comment about, quote, loaning me to my ex if he ever felt like recreating old times.
What? That's horrifying. After that comment, OOP breaks up with him, moves out. Good for her. Absolutely the right call.
But it's not over. The now ex-boyfriend launches this vicious smear campaign, contacts both OOPs and the ex's families.
No.
Falsely claiming OOP and the ex were having an affair all along, and he keeps harassing OOP, getting new numbers to text and call her.
Wow. Just wow. When people online looked at this, the reaction was overwhelming, right? Red flags everywhere.
Everywhere.
Intense insecurity channeling to just outright loathing. And that idea you mentioned about his toxic streak being untriggered until the ex became real, that resonated.
Yeah, it's chilling. What else is lying dormant, you know?
Exactly. It was waiting for the right catalyst in a relationship that seems perfect. And yeah, there were darker theories floating around too. Was he maybe attracted to the ex himself?
People definitely suggested that.
Or were those comments hinting at some kind of like threesome or even a cuckold fetish?
Yeah.
It just goes to show how quickly unchecked insecurity can completely destroy a relationship.
Let's move to our next story. One is, well, it's terrifying. It's a woman's account of a relationship that started okay, but turned deeply abusive after she and her boyfriend James moved in together.
Yeah, the shift she describes is alarming. He became clingy, controlling, prone to these intense tantrums.
The control just escalated, didn't it?
Chillingly so. Constant demands for her attention, even while she was trying to work from home, just wearing her down. Then the nonstop texting when she went out.
With threats, like, I won't be here when you get back, or you're not going to like what you find. Classic manipulation.
Absolutely. Using his own supposed insecurities to justify relentless questioning. She suspected he checked her journals, maybe even put spyware on her phone.
And it spilled into public humiliation, too, that dinner incident.
Right, forcing a heavy relationship talk at dinner, then storming out because her demeanor made him look bad. It's about isolating and controlling her perception.
But the car ride, that sounds like the absolute breaking point.
Unbelievably dangerous. Slamming on the brakes on the interstate from 77 miles per hour to a dead stop, twice while yelling and refusing to let her out. That's not just control, that's life-threatening aggression.
So after that horror show, she tells him it's over, but he won't leave.
No, he digs in. Tells her she'll have to evict him. Then the cycle starts. Begging, crying, taking her keys, threatening suicide, textbook abusive tactics to maintain control.
And this is where the system just fails her.
Completely. She calls the police, but they say they can't do anything because he hasn't physically assaulted me.
So the terrifying car incident doesn't count?
Apparently not enough for intervention. She tries for a civil no-contact order, denied for the same reason. Even a lawyer confirms this awful loophole. No physical assault, no immediate legal protection in her situation.
That's incredibly frustrating. And then there was that issue with the officer and her old charges.
Yeah, that detail is just infuriating. An officer who knew her from old drug charges discharged years ago, back in 2014, basically washes his hands of it. Says, oh, well, I can't help you.
Wow, like her past somehow disqualifies her from protection now.
It's a shocking illustration of how someone's history, even long resolved, can be weaponized or used as an excuse to deny help when they're most vulnerable.
And predictably, tragically, it escalates to physical violence.
Yes. Just a week before the eviction date, he attacks her. Knocks her down, slams her head and arm, tries to sexually assault her, headbutts her, gives her 2 black eyes. Just brutal.
It's only after the assault that the full picture emerges, the planning.
It's horrifying. She finds a hidden camera in her fireplace, a GPS tracker on her car.
And the locks.
The basement door locks tampered with. Screws clipped short, just pushed back in place so he could easily break back in later. It shows clear premeditation. He intended to return.
Thank goodness he was arrested before he could.
Right, arrested on unrelated charges on his way back to his hometown. That break was what finally allowed her to get the no-contact order.
So this becomes a turning point. She has to make some incredibly hard choices.
She does. She follows the advice to move, even though it means leaving her grandparents' home, a place with deep emotional ties, near her supportive aunt and her son.
But her aunt steps up.
Amazingly, yes. The aunt buys the house to keep it in the family and arranges care for herself and the son, providing a crucial safety net. The woman is now working with a DV organization, getting support.
Still, she expresses feeling sad and disappointed in myself, blaming herself.
Which is heartbreaking, but sadly common for survivors. Feeling responsible for the abuser's actions, for the disruption to her family's lives. It highlights the psychological toll.
And this story really resonated in the comments, sparking discussions about the system's failures.
Oh, big time. People were furious. That sentiment. You shouldn't have to wait until your abuser tries to kill you before you get help. It really struck a nerve.
There was talk about coercive control laws elsewhere.
Yeah, people pointed to places like the UK and Australia, asking if recognizing patterns of control before physical violence could be a better approach.
And criticism wasn't just about laws, but about law enforcement attitudes.
Definitely. Some comments brought up statistics about abuse within law enforcement itself, arguing it's a systemic issue, not just isolated incidents. That feeling that the system itself can be hostile to victims.
It ties back to that idea of the cycle of abuse, how someone can be almost conditioned to accept mistreatment.
Exactly. Survivors can be wired to be exploited, as one commenter put it. It underscores why therapy is so vital, not just for healing, but for breaking those patterns, learning self-worth, recognizing red flags earlier.
Okay, let's shift gears now. A different kind of X-drama for our next story.
Right.
This one involves the reappearance of a first love. We're following a 27-year-old woman, another OOP, and her husband Liam, also 27. They'd been together nearly 8 years. Married.
Stable relationship, long-term.
Seemingly. Now, Liam has this history with his first love, Danielle, who's 28 now. They were high school sweethearts. Shared, quote, a lot of firsts. Liam was apparently truly in love.
Okay, the classic first love scenario.
Exactly. But their relationship ended badly. A real crash and burn, as Oki put it. Danielle became manipulative, emotionally abusive. This was after she joined a religious group in college and tried to save him.
That adds a layer of complexity and potential trauma.
For sure. Liam was left with trauma, trust issues. OOP actually helped him work through a lot of that over their years together.
So OP was instrumental in his healing.
Seems so. 8 years pass. No contact with Danielle. She's now married, has a young child.
Okay, so the past is seemingly in the past. Until
Danielle messages Liam. She saw their social media post about moving house.
That's a trigger.
Yep. Starts casually, but then Danielle asks for an in-person meeting, says she wants to give him a deep apology.
An apology after 8 years needing to be in person raises an eyebrow.
OP was concerned too, understandably. But Liam convinces her, oh, it's just for an hour. So OP stays home.
Okay, setting the scene for potential trouble.
So what was meant to be this short apology meeting, well, it turns into something much longer, doesn't it? What happened in those 4.5 hours?
Yeah, 4.5 hours is not a short apology.
Yeah.
Liam comes home, explains Danielle did apologize, but then bombshell.
Oh.
She confessed her own marriage is falling apart. She's thinking about divorce. And she'd been confiding all of this in Liam.
During the apology meeting.
Exactly. Then Liam kind of casually asked OOP how she'd feel about them being casual acquaintances.
Wait. After hearing his ex's marriage is collapsing, that timing is suspect.
Highly suspect. And it gets worse. Later, Liam tearfully admits something else Danielle confessed.
What?
That she still has feelings for him. Said her husband isn't half the man he is.
Oh, wow. Classic manipulation tactic, maybe. Flattery mixed with vulnerability.
Could be. But here's the critical part, especially from the online community's reaction. It wasn't just Danielle's confession. It was Liam's immediate admission that he, too, had unresolved feelings.
After 8 years.
After 8 years. Suddenly believing his past hurt wasn't really her fault. It was just her religious trauma. Things were out of context.
Astonishing. Like all that healing just evaporated. How often does that happen, these old first love feelings resurfacing so intensely?
It's actually quite common. Often it's not genuine unresolved love, but more like nostalgia, an idealized memory, or sometimes, frankly, an ego boost. Someone from your past saying you're amazing. It can be intoxicating, even if it's not real.
Right, and this naturally caused immediate conflict with OP. She tells him she's uncomfortable with them talking more. She's worried Danielle will misinterpret his kindness, Says he should tell Danielle to talk to her husband or her friends, not him.
Setting a very reasonable boundary.
Seems so, but Liam pushes back, insists Danielle respects marriage, she won't try anything, claims he just wants to be there for her because she doesn't really have anyone else.
The rescuer complex, perhaps. Or maybe willful ignorance?
Maybe. Later, OOP sees Danielle texting Liam. He claims he's trying to slowly cut her off, but he's still texting her back.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like cutting her off. The online reaction was pretty swift here, right?
Immediate. Overwhelmingly. Yes, you should be concerned. Commenters were telling OP that Liam needed to cut ties completely if he valued her peace.
And arguing that Danielle already tried to come between them by confessing feelings. It wasn't hypothetical anymore.
Exactly. Strong accusations of emotional infidelity flew around. People saying Liam was basically treating OOP as a placeholder. It really underscores the need for clear boundaries, doesn't it?
Absolutely vital. especially when past emotions are involved.
Thankfully, this one had a pretty swift resolution. The very next day, Liam confronts Danielle.
Okay, so he did take some action.
He did. And Danielle doesn't hold back. She directly asks him how happy he really is with OP.
Wow, bold.
And then suggests they could run away together. Says she'd divorce her husband for him.
There it is. The mask slips completely.
Completely. And that directness, that blatant disregard for his marriage, that finally broke Liam's, quote, rose-colored glasses.
Reality hits.
Hard. He realized those unresolved feelings were just, as he put it, nostalgia and an ego boost. He suddenly remembered the manipulative person she actually was.
Sometimes it takes that bluntness to see clearly.
Seems so. Liam then cut off all contact, deleted messages, blocked her everywhere right there in front of OP.
Okay, good. Showing his commitment to OOP finally. This story really illustrates that monkey branching concept, doesn't it?
Explain that.
Danielle trying to secure a new relationship, a new branch, Liam, before letting go of her current one.
Right.
And the consensus online was that Liam showed, frankly, crappy boundaries and no social awareness. Maybe he was more into the idea of Danielle than just nostalgia until her actual intention scared him straight.
Could be. It definitely shows how crucial direct communication is and holding your partner accountable. Sometimes, like you said, only that direct confrontation shatters the illusion.
Precisely.
Let's move to our next story. It's a man recounting the breakdown of his marriage after his wife's infidelity. But his own actions add layers and layers of complexity.
Yeah, this one requires a bit of untangling. So, after 7 years of marriage, his wife confesses to multiple affairs over the last 4 years.
Okay, straightforward betrayal. He moves out, plans to divorce.
Right, but then he keeps going back to the house, ostensibly for chores or pets, and in his words, one thing led to another, and we had sex, and she got pregnant again.
Wait, after he knew about the affairs and after he'd moved out intending to divorce?
Yes. And apparently, they had actually been trying for a baby before the second confession, but he continued having unprotected sex with her, even after knowing about the ongoing infidelity and deciding on divorce.
Okay, that's confusing. Then he meets someone new.
While separated, yes. His pregnant wife is 12 hours away, and he starts dating a new girlfriend.
Does he tell his wife?
He tells her he still wants the divorce, but adds that he would consider reconciling after the baby was born, which, as you can imagine, the commenters called out as stringing her along a huge breadcrumb.
And the new girlfriend.
He keeps her a secret from his wife. Says it was at the request of my girlfriend.
Right. So the aftermath must have been chaotic.
Extremely. He goes back for the birth of their son, confirms paternity, then he files for divorce. But it gets complicated by state laws, waiting periods, restrictions, because she was pregnant.
And the wife? She initially agreed on terms.
She supposedly did, regarding assets and child support. But then she hires a lawyer anyway and tells him that he doesn't need one.
Red flag.
Huge red flag. Thankfully, he ignored her and got his own lawyer. Good move.
So things get antagonistic.
Very. She starts blaming him for ruining our family and our son's future, acting, as he describes it, erratic and manipulative. She even tries to block him from seeing the baby, though they eventually work out coordination.
And when does he finally tell her about the girlfriend?
He eventually does. Her reaction. She claims she doesn't care and still thinks they can reconcile.
Wow. The comment section must have had a field day with this one.
Oh, you bet. Widespread criticism, mostly directed at the man. Things like, my dude, you need to end one relationship before you start the next.
Yeah, that seems basic.
And pointing out the cruelty of leading her on. You let her on, apparently didn't use protection, knocked her up, and now want to leave her.
What about the baby trapping idea? Did that come up?
It did, but many commenters shut it down quickly. As one person put it, if two people have sex and neither is using any sort of contraception that's not a trap, it's biology.
Or more bluntly,
he chose to come in her vagina and is then surprised to be a dad. People were not holding back.
Understandable. And the poor kid caught in the middle.
Huge concern there. Worries about stability, how 50-50 custody works when parents live hours apart. And yeah, a lot of predictions that he'd become a deadbeat in the making, especially once the new girlfriend likely gets pregnant.
Did people find his account reliable? The therapy comment was weird.
Yeah, that inconsistency stood out. First saying he refused therapy, then later claiming 3 therapists told him to stay married. It made him seem like an unreliable narrator. Definitely contributed to the king of bad decisions label he got. Just a perceived lack of self-awareness.
So again, like the others, communication or the lack of it is a massive theme here. Her initial lies, his, well, dishonest and cowardly handling of the whole separation and new relationship.
Absolutely. The advice to stop playing emotional games really resonated. It's just creating more pain for everyone involved, especially the child.
Were there broader takeaways about relationships in general from the comments on this one?
There were some interesting, maybe cynical observations. That recurring line, the bar is subterranean for men. A sense that expectations can be disappointingly low.
Anything else?
The idea that rarely a toxic relationship where one side is toxic and the other is a practical saint. Usually there's dysfunction on both sides, even if it looks different.
That makes sense.
And that practical advice hammered home again. Get a lawyer in a divorce. Never trust someone who gets a lawyer and tells you that you don't need one. Solid advice.
And finally,
just reinforcing that idea of the cycle of bad relationships. The need to heal and reflect before jumping into something new. Otherwise, you just repeat the same patterns. A lesson this guy seemed to desperately need. Outro.
Moving on to the next story. We're looking at a 27-year-old man, OOP, married 3 years to his 26-year-old wife. Now, his wife has a strained relationship with her sister, who's 30 and pregnant. We'll call her SI, sister-in-law.
Okay, family dynamics already sound a bit tense.
Yes. The initial shock hits when OOP is out to dinner and sees his brother-in-law, the pregnant SI's husband, who's 31, we'll call them BIL, kissing another woman.
Oh, wow. Caught red-handed.
Red-handed. He immediately tells his wife, urges her, you have to tell your sister.
That's a tough situation. What do you when you find out about infidelity in your own family circle like that?
Yeah.
It puts you in a really difficult position.
It really does. And his wife's reaction was, well, shocking.
How so?
She flat out refused to tell her sister.
Refused? Why?
She insisted they should talk to the BIL instead. Said they shouldn't break their marriage because her sister is pregnant.
Whoa. Prioritizing the appearance of the marriage over the truth, even with cheating involved, especially when her sister is pregnant.
Exactly. She completely ignored OP's pleas, his moral arguments, just told him, stay out of it. He warned her, if you don't tell her, I will.
Yeah.
And his wife threatened to stop talking to him if he did.
Drawing a line in the sand, but maybe on the wrong side of morality for many people.
Seems like it. So OP followed his conscience.
He told his sister.
He went to his SIL's place, told her everything. Initially, she doubted him, asked him to leave, but a few hours later, she called him back, crying.
She confirmed it.
Confirmed it was true, said she was leaving her husband. OP immediately wired her some money, offered support.
Okay, so he did what he felt was right, supported the victim. How did his wife react to that?
Furiously, accused OOP of ruining her family and her sister's life.
Ruining her sister's life by telling her the truth about her cheating husband. That logic is warped.
Completely warped. She refused to discuss it further, just gave him the silent treatment. OOP confronted her later, asking about their marriage vows, your family is mine. Why was she defending this guy, this POS?
Yeah, valid questions. Did she answer?
This is where it gets deeply disturbing. The conflict escalates, and his wife makes some shocking confessions about her own views.
Like what?
OP asks her, straight up, would you forgive me if I cheated? She says yes.
Okay, that's surprising, maybe, depending on the person.
But then he asks, if you cheated, would you hide it from me? And again, she says yes.
Wow.
Her reasoning, quote, just because you had sex with someone else doesn't mean everyone else has to suffer and break the family.
Okay, hold on. That reveals a fundamental difference in values, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is where the story really pivots, I think. Her confession just shatters OOP's trust. How could it not?
It signals that the foundation of their relationship, trust, honesty, fidelity, means something completely different to her. That's incredibly damaging. It's not just sex, as she puts it. It's the lying, the violation of trust, potential health risks, and frankly, a profound lack of empathy, as we're seeing here.
Totally. And from that point, their marriage just unravels fast.
I can imagine.
OP tells his wife he sent money to help the SIL. Another huge screaming match erupts. She yells, fine, to getting a divorce, and then leaves. For a week, completely incommunicado.
A whole week. Where'd she go?
He didn't know. He was worried, but also felt so betrayed by her just disappearing like that and her whole stance on cheating. When she finally came back, OOP told her he was filing for divorce. Lost trust, couldn't get past it.
Understandable. Did you try to reconcile?
She did, but he refused. Then he revealed the SIL had actually stayed at their home for 2 days while she was gone, and his wife exploded again, yelled, fine, let's divorce, and left again.
Wow. The volatility is intense.
Intense. Now, during all this turmoil, OP and his SIL actually formed a really strong bond.
How so?
Well, the Sahel moved back in with OOP temporarily. They became, as he put it, friends, bonding over this shared experience of betrayal by partners, and in OP's case, betrayal by his wife's lack of support. They vented, supported each other.
Shared trauma can create strong connections.
Definitely. The Sahel got inspired, decided to go nuclear on her cheating husband in the divorce, alimony, child support, the works. And seeing her strength actually inspired OOP too. Made him realize he also needed to cut the toxicity out of his life, meaning his wife.
Finding strength in each other's resolve. What's the latest update on this?
The latest was around Christmas. OOP and the SIL celebrated with some family kids, showered them with gifts, trying to create some normalcy.
Oh, yeah.
His soon-to-be ex-wife finds out, and what does she do? Starts a smear campaign.
Oh, similar to the first story, Zach.
Exactly. Spreading rumors that OOP and the SL were actually cheating together all along. That's why he's divorcing her to marry the sister.
Unbelievable. Twisting his active support into an accusation.
Yep. And some family members actually believed her. Accused OP of cheating, urged him to take his wife back, saying she did nothing wrong.
That highlights that pattern again, doesn't it? Blaming the messenger. It's easier to attack the person revealing the ugly truth than confront the betrayal itself.
It seems so. OP had to defend their friendship as purely platonic, based on mutual support through shared betrayal.
And online commenters likely saw through the wife's actions, right? Pointing out that cheating isn't just sex. It's lies, betrayal, health risks.
Absolutely. Many suspected the wife might have been cheating herself, or at minimum just had no moral standards and maybe even deep contempt for her own sister. That week-long disappearance. Highly suspicious to many.
Yeah, it raised a lot of questions. Where was she? Was she with an affair partner herself? We don't know, but it adds another layer of doubt.
Definitely.
So if we try to connect these dots, these three deep dives, they really illustrate some pretty universal themes in relationships, don't they?
Yeah, they really do.
Things like the absolutely devastating impact of insecurity, the critical importance of having clear boundaries, and, of course, the profound consequences of infidelity and lies.
So let's recap those lessons for you, the listener. First, insecurity. We saw how it can twist and morph into something incredibly destructive, right? Leading to obsession, control, even that weird imitation we saw. It's a powerful force. It can blind people to reality, make them hurt the ones they supposedly love.
Absolutely. And boundaries.
Yeah.
Or the lack thereof.
Let's move to our next story. We've got a 30-year-old woman, married 6 years to a 34-year-old guy, 2 little kids, 3 years old and just 8 months. So about a year ago, she's 6 months pregnant, and she starts noticing things. Red flags, her husband's glued to his phone, constantly. And these dings keep going off from a group chat with work people, including a new female coworker.
Right. And that constant phone thing, it just amps up the suspicion, doesn't it? It pushes her to do something she'd never done before. Check his phone. That's a big step.
Yeah.
Shows how uneasy she was.
Yeah. And what she finds is, well, concerning. There's a group chat, sure, but also private Instagram messages, him and this coworker, just teasing each other about work, apparently. So she confronts him, says, look, I'm not comfortable with the private chats. And he actually agrees, says sorry, stops it.
Okay, so that's an early attempt to set a boundary. And he seemed to go along with it, but, agreeing without really getting it or really meaning it.
Yeah.
That often doesn't last.
Doesn't it just... So fast forward a few months. She's now 8 months pregnant. They're driving home from vacation. And suddenly their son's iPad in the back starts pinging like crazy. Turns out, he'd accidentally linked his iCloud to it. And it's just flooding with texts and pictures from the coworker.
Wow. So the confrontation that must have followed and his excuse, it's just shocking. He tells her, you're just feeling hormonal right now. This isn't you. You're not jealous. You're not insecure. Wait till you're not pregnant. Have a drink with her. You'll like her. Using her pregnancy, her vulnerability, to basically tell her feelings aren't real. That's gaslighting 101. It's that psychological manipulation making you doubt your own reality.
It's awful. And the really heartbreaking part, she said she caved and believed him.
Yeah, at that point, the weaponization of hormones really resonated in the comments online. It's such a common and insidious tactic, isn't it? Dismissing valid concerns because someone's menstruating or pregnant or going through menopause. Like biology somehow negates legitimate feelings. And let's not forget, men have hormones too. They definitely impact behavior. It's purely a deflection.
Totally. So the final straw comes after his paternity leave ends. He goes back to work, and one night she finds him basically begging this coworker to do some specialized assignment with him. Just the two of them, alone in a car, 5 days a week.
And that's the moment. The click. She finally sees the whole picture, the gaslighting, the constant deception. It wasn't her hormones. It was him all along. So she decides, right then, divorce. And suddenly he's frantic, offers to block the coworker, quit his job, anything.
But get this, the manipulation doesn't even stop there. He hands her his phone, wants her to talk to the coworker, and then suggests that drink I told you to get with her when you were no longer pregnant and crazy. Just unbelievable audacity. Her response was perfect, though. Get out and have that drink for me. We are done.
Oof. And the comments section added even more layers. He apparently admitted he would most likely continue to lie if he hadn't been caught red-handed. The coworker's defense, oh, I'm like this with all my male coworkers, and then she tries to add the wife on social media. And the pictures weren't just work banter. He was showing the coworker pictures of their home, the one the wife paid for. That invasion of their private space, that's a deep violation.
Absolutely. So the final update. After some therapy, a temporary separation, she finds another picture. Him. In the coworker's car, running errands for her. And her reaction, she just laughed, then told him to get a divorce lawyer. It's happening now.
It just shows, doesn't it? Repeated lies, even after supposed attempts to fix things, it kills any remaining trust. That lack of consistent integrity, that's what ultimately seals the deal in these situations.
Okay, so from that kind of real-time deception and gaslighting, let's shift to something quite different, a discovery about the past. Years later, this is a 38-year-old guy finding out about something his wife did right at the start of their relationship, like 15 years ago. So picture this, 15-year relationship, married for 9, trying for kids, and he says before this, their relationship was awesome.
And the reveal is completely out of the blue.
Yeah.
He overhears his wife talking to her sister, confessing she slept with a lab assistant back in 2010. This was right after she and the husband became exclusive. And her words were, well, they hit hard. I wasn't sure things with husband's name would work out. I just allowed myself to do it. I felt guilty once I saw how much he loved me, and I could see a future with him.
Yeah. And the impact on him, even though it was 15 years ago, was immediate. He said it felt like she just cheated on me. Really intense hurt.
And there was a bit of initial confusion there, too, tied to language. He mentioned his first language is Portuguese, and started dating, or namorar in Portuguese, implies exclusivity, not just casual dating or friends with benefits like it might in some contexts. So he was clear, they were exclusive when it happened. That detail mattered a lot to him.
Right. So he actually talked to his therapist first, which seems smart. Decided to focus not so much on the act itself from way back then, but more on the fact that she hid it for 15 years. Why?
And when he did talk to her, she apparently broke down, crying. Admitted it happened right after they got exclusive. Her explanation was kind of, well, blaming bad friends, telling her to have more fun after a previous bad relationship. She also insisted it was just a makeout, not actually sleeping with him. Claimed she'd exaggerated to her sister, said she regretted it instantly, cried all night.
And his reaction, he forgave her. He said he felt her remorse about hiding it was genuine. And to sort of mark a fresh start, they decided to change their anniversary. They'll celebrate their wedding date and move-in date now, not the original relationship start date.
Yeah, but this is where those online comments got really interesting.
Yeah.
People question if this was genuine or if it was trickle-truthing. You know that pattern where someone only reveals bits of the truth, usually when they're cornered or more evidence comes out? Was changing the story from slept with to make out a way to soften the blow, to manage the information rather than give a full upfront confession? It's hard to know for sure. That trickle truth thing, it protects the person who lied, but it can make healing so much harder for the partner.
Definitely. But despite all that complexity and hurt, he ends by saying the relationship is continuing. It's shifted, he says, but not broken. He still loves her more than anything.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? Forgiveness. Especially for something so long ago that suddenly feels brand new. What does that even look like? How does all that time passing change how we see it, how we heal? Or can we heal when the wound is old but the discovery is fresh? It's complex.
Let's move to our next story. This one's, we're calling it the pre-wedding bombshell. A 32-year-old guy finds out his fiancé, she's 31, has been cheating just 4 months before the wedding. After 7 years together, it starts, again, with suspicious behavior. After a wedding venue meeting, she spins this weird story about picking up a friend. Then there's this hour-long phone call that just feels off.
Right. And his gut feeling kicks in immediately. He decides to check the phone records. A tough call, but he later said he didn't regret it. Trusting that intuition again.
And the confrontation. It starts with lies, naturally, but eventually it comes out. Crazy texts with a coworker. This guy's like 15, 20 years older, divorced kids. The texts are sexual. They're talking a lot of trash about the fiancé, and she's saying she wants to be with him. Ouch!
And her reaction when caught. instant blame shifting. It's almost textbook. She claims he's the reason. His lack of communication, not listening, working too much, even though he was working extra hours specifically to support her financially. Then she says she would have rather gotten a part-time job than have his support. It doesn't add up, does it? It's pure deflection.
Not at all. That she tries to downplay it. Oh, it was short-lived, just a week. We only made out once.
But he saw right through it. His realization was crystal clear. He told her straight up, I'm not the reason you did this. You threw this away. That's a powerful moment of clarity and honestly self-respect.
Absolutely. So the wedding, obviously canceled immediately. Then they're stuck living together awkwardly, hardly talking except about feeding their 3 dogs.
But what's really interesting is what he does next. He dives into self-improvement, starts therapy, hits the gym, reconnects with friends and family, admitting the relationship had actually become really isolating for him. Starts a side business. And through all this, he has this huge realization. He'd been maybe comfortable before, but actually miserable. He starts seeing his fiancé as, in his words, a narcissist, completely self-centered, dependent, and manipulative, discovering his own blind spots.
Wow. That's quite a transformation.
Yeah.
The practical side was messy, though. They sold the house bought mainly for her horse, apparently. And he lost 2 of their 3 dogs in the split. He said that pain was like a loved one dying.
Yeah, dogs are family. And interestingly, he got into a new relationship fairly quickly afterwards, which, sparked some debate online about whether that's healthy or maybe trauma bonding. That idea where you bond intensely with someone new because you've both been through something rough, but the bond might be tied more to the trauma than genuine compatibility.
Right. But he ends his story feeling incredibly grateful for the advice he got. Feels like he dodged a bullet, basically. Says he's living a better life now and is definitely not ignoring red flags anymore.
Such a stark example of that blame-shifting pattern, isn't it? And zero accountability. These kinds of pre-wedding discoveries, they're devastating in the moment, absolutely. But often, they really are protective in the long run. A painful wake-up call, but maybe a necessary one.
Let's move to our next story of a 28-year-old man who we'll call the original poster, or OP.
OP, right.
He was deeply in love with his 26-year-old girlfriend, Sarah, but felt constantly sidelined by her relationship with her male best friend, Jake. He's 27.
What's striking here in the story is how our narrator initially calls it a platonic friendship.
Yeah, platonic.
But the details pretty quickly suggest otherwise, don't they? Jake texting Sarah constantly, even on dates.
Using pet names like babe and sweetheart.
Right. And Sarah just dismisses it. Oh, that's just their thing.
Where?
For years.
Which raises that crucial question. When do seemingly innocent behaviors cross the line? When does it become emotional infidelity?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really is a crucial line, isn't it? Because emotional infidelity often happens when one partner puts significant emotional energy, intimacy, trust into someone outside the main relationship.
Building a bond that sort of replaces what should be happening inside the partnership.
Exactly. And in this case, the OOP found Sarah on FaceTime with Jake at 2 a.m., whispering and giggling in their shared space.
Oof. Yeah. But the final straw, Sarah asked him to postpone their pre-planned 1-year anniversary getaway, something they'd looked forward to for months.
To go to a concert with Jake instead for a band they both absolutely love. Wow.
Right.
That really highlights a critical point, prioritizing a non-romantic relationship or supposedly non-romantic over a committed partnership.
So when our narrator set boundaries, no more pet names, less one-on-one time, prioritize us, Sarah's reaction was, well, swift.
Offensive, I bet.
Totally. Calling him controlling and insecure. She even brought Jake into it, who called the OOP toxic and manipulative. The classic dynamic. You see this a lot. The partner deflecting blame and the external party enabling the behavior, even if the affair is emotional.
It's textbook deflection. But then, after the initial online post, Sarah did a surprising 180.
Oh.
Canceled the concert, apologized, seemed to choose the relationship. They even spent their anniversary weekend together.
Okay, so maybe a turning point.
Well, the damage was deep for our narrator. He couldn't shake the feeling it was too little, too late. He eventually asked for a break.
Which brings up that really important question about trust, doesn't it? Once it's broken, can it really be fixed?
Exactly.
So even though Sarah made efforts, he felt he had already checked out. His gut just told him he still couldn't trust her. So, temporary separation.
And the final update revealed why, after 3 months of them seemingly trying to make it work, OOP discovered Sarah and Jake had refollowed each other on Instagram. Then he found recent DMs.
Oh, no. What do they say?
Sarah expressing how much she missed Jake, how it killed her to block him, and the real kicker, how she had developed feelings for him, but was scared to leave OOP because then it wouldn't be Jake and OP, it would just be Jake.
Wow. Wow, so she was afraid of losing the couple identity.
Apparently. And she'd even seen Jake behind OP's back saying she was going to the gym.
The gym excuse. Classic.
And when he confronted her, her response was, "You weren't supposed to see that."
Ugh. That line, it's so revealing, isn't it? What does that phrasing tell us psychologically?
Well, it's precisely that the focus is totally on being caught, not on the betrayal itself.
Yeah.
And it's such a common tactic for people caught in deceit. They try to flip the script, make the betrayed party feel guilty for finding out.
Absolutely. Make you the bad guy for discovering their bad behavior.
The comments on this story really underscored a harsh reality. Our narrator dodged a bullet.
Sounds like it. Sarah's desire to, have her cake and eat it too, wanting the excitement with Jake and the stability of the relationship, that rarely ends well.
It really highlights a fundamental lack of respect, doesn't it? And commitment to the actual partnership.
Definitely. A tough lesson in how emotional infidelity can just quietly erode everything.
Story really shows how insidious emotional infidelity can be and how blame gets deflected. Speaking of blame and broken trust, our next narrative takes us into an equally heartbreaking but very different situation.
Okay.
Imagine being 8 months pregnant, totally over the moon, as the narrator put it,
Yeah.
only to discover your husband is having a full-blown affair, nudes, I love you, messages, the whole thing.
Oh, that's devastating, especially given her vulnerable state. Just awful.
When she confronted him, his immediate reaction was denial. Then, trying to turn it back on her.
Let me guess. Claiming she was always trying to cause fights.
You got it. And then came the classic excuse. He cheated because she didn't give him enough attention.
Ah, the attention excuses. Well, it's not just flimsy, is it? It often reveals a profound lack of emotional maturity.
Right.
And sort of an external locus of control, where the person just disowns responsibility and projects their own needs onto their partner instead of, communicating or looking inward.
And the irony here, the wife was working full-time. The husband did lawn care, but only worked whenever it wasn't raining.
Seriously.
She's 8 months pregnant, getting ready for a baby, and he blames her lack of attention. It just makes you wonder about self-awareness sometimes.
It really does. And the public reaction in the comments is interesting here, too.
What do people say?
Well, a strong consensus that the husband's attention excuse is just dumb and, asshole behavior, to quote.
Blunt, but understandable.
Many pointed out that people cheat because they make the choice to cheat. It's not because of their partner's actions or circumstances, no matter how demanding those might be.
That perspective really empowers the person who was betrayed, doesn't it? Reinforces that the blame lies squarely with the one who broke the vows.
Exactly. And you also saw this fierce debate in the comments about the other woman.
Oh yeah, the whole homewrecker debate.
Right. Is she a homewrecker? If she knows he's married? Or does all the blame fall on the unfaithful spouse?
It's a messy ethical question. So what did our narrator do?
Well, she took action. She texted the affair partner.
Oh, wow. What does she say?
Basically, my husband is a liar, and I hope you are proud of yourself for being a homewrecker, and I have all y'all's messages.
Direct. Intense.
It reflects that common visceral response, doesn't it? Anger directed at everyone involved.
Understandably.
And while many online commenters emphasized, the husband is the primary homewrecker because he made the vows.
This is true.
There's also a strong feeling that the affair partner, if she knew about the marriage, which the OOP said she did, also shares some culpability. A lack of basic decency, as some put it.
That makes sense.
And the broader context here. It reveals that pregnancy and the postpartum period are, sadly, alarmingly common times for partners to cheat.
Really? Why is that?
Often it comes back to that perceived lack of attention excuse, or the focus shifting dramatically towards the baby. It's a time of huge transition and stress.
It really brings out the best or worst in people, I guess.
It certainly seems to.
Okay, so from emotional affairs and attention excuses, let's explore a story that took the concept of a dramatic reveal to, an extreme.
This next one is something else.
Our final narrator knew for months that his girlfriend's child wasn't his.
Knew for months. Okay.
But he waited until she had just given birth to drop the bombshell.
Wow. Okay. That is truly a shocking narrative. So he finds out from the biological father, Brian, during the pregnancy.
Right.
And he chooses to keep this secret for months. his stated intention to hurt her in her most vulnerable moment.
Yeah. A decision that, unsurprisingly, sparked huge debate in the comments.
I can imagine. So he waits until she's sewn up and comfortable after giving birth, baby's in the ICU.
Yeah.
And then tells her.
Exactly. Tells her, I know I'm not baby's name's father. Just ask Brian to come. I'm positive he'll sign the birth certificate.
It's just cold.
The story gets even more complex, though. Apparently, Brian, the biological father, became a Christian and felt compelled to reveal the truth. And he even reportedly provided the narrator with texts and a sex tape as proof.
Okay, hold on. A sex tape. That detail alone made a lot of commenters raise their eyebrows.
Yeah, many found it particularly unbelievable and problematic too, raising questions about, ethical boundaries, even potential revenge porn issues, depending on context.
Absolutely. And while the specifics of this story sparked a lot of online debate about whether it was even real.
Because of details like the alleged tape or Brian's sudden religious conversion.
Right. What it vividly illustrates are those profound human emotions. Deep betrayal meeting this intense desire for dramatic confrontation.
Whether it's literally true or not, it works as a kind of thought experiment on revenge, doesn't it?
It really does. And commenters also pointed out other inconsistencies, like the baby being in ICU just for monitoring because the mom had a fever. Seems unlikely.
And the narrator's rebound relationship, calling himself a stepdad after only 8 months, despite saying he wanted to take things slow.
Yeah, it all highlighted for many those narrative choices you often see in fictional revenge fantasies. Things wrapping up a bit too neatly, maybe.
Still, despite the skepticism, our narrator stuck to his story even in later updates.
What did he say later?
He said she went to therapy, claimed his life had picked up, found new happiness with a single mother and her child, who he calls his stepdaughter.
Okay.
And he even stated he didn't feel bad about how he handled things with his ex, believed her pain was deserved.
Oof. That's harsh. What's truly intriguing here is that stark contrast, isn't it? How he saw himself versus how some commenters saw him.
Definitely. He claimed he treated her amazing, but then later admitted he wasn't always the best guy.
Which serves as a powerful reminder for you, the listener, right? That perception and narrative can differ so significantly from reality, especially when emotions are running high. And it also reinforces the idea that the way you handle conflict, even justified anger, can have lasting implications for your own character, your own healing journey.
That's a really important point. Let's move to our next story.
The shadow of heredity, a health dilemma, and a couple's impasse.
It's basically a love story that gets completely rocked by a medical bombshell. A woman's fiancé, who happens to be adopted, finds out his biological father died from Huntington's disease.
HD.
Ah, yes. And that immediately puts the fiancé himself at a 50% risk of having inherited it. Exactly. But here's the kicker. He absolutely refuses to get tested.
And Huntington's, just so everyone understands, it's a truly devastating neurological disease. People often call it a guaranteed death sentence because it just relentlessly breaks down a person's mind and body over time.
Yeah, the descriptions are horrific. Loss of grip on reality, emotional chaos, loss of movement, like schizophrenia, dementia, Parkinson's, and ALS all rolled into one.
It's brutal. And patients often die from complications, like pneumonia from aspirating food. And the really cruel part, as of when this was originally shared, there was no real treatment, nothing to stop it, though, there is some hope now with gene therapy research.
And the timing is so uncertain, right?
That's key. No one can tell you when symptoms might start. Could be your 30s, could be your 60s, even with the same genetic mutation, which understandably leads to a high suicide rate among those who test positive. It's an immense burden to carry.
So, you have the woman. She calls him the love of my life, says she literally can't imagine being without him. Her big fear isn't actually the disease, she says, it's the not knowing.
The uncertainty.
Exactly. She's a self-described planner. She wants to prepare financially, practically, emotionally, think about care, budgets, where to live, and the huge question of whether to have biological kids.
That makes sense.
And she's crystal clear. I would not leave him if he tested positive. I would not leave him if he got sick. She just needs to know so she can plan.
And his reaction, refusing the test because he feels a positive result, will hold him back from living his life.
That's incredibly human, isn't it?
Yeah. Denial. Wanting to just live without that shadow hanging over him.
Precisely. It's a kind of psychological self-preservation, even if it creates this awful friction. He's protecting his present. She's trying to protect their future.
And that clash led straight to an impasse. She hit her breaking point, just consumed by nonstop anxiety. She was not in a good place, plain exhausted, even started thinking about ending the engagement. That level of stress is corrosive. But, how they resolved it is actually quite instructive. They didn't just give up.
No, they really worked through it.
Yeah, at length, communication, lots of tears, fights too, apparently. They did research, saw specialists.
And they took time apart, a mutual decision, she said.
Which seems key. It gave them both space to process everything. Eventually, he did agree to get tested.
And the result?
Negative. Huge relief.
As she put it.
They dodged an absolute maelstrom of bullets.
Wow. You'd think that would be the end of it, engagement back on track.
But it wasn't, interestingly. Even with the good news, the whole ordeal left a mark. They actually put the engagement on hold again and took more time apart.
Really? For self-reflection?
Seems so. She traveled abroad for months. He went on a cross-country road trip. They needed to sort of reset individually.
And when they came back together?
They found, in her words, their magic was still there. They felt even better and more comfortable. They admitted they weren't perfect dealing with it, but now felt 100% committed to combining our completely opposite ways of dealing with crises into a superpower.
That's quite a journey. From potential tragedy to a stronger foundation.
It really is. And this whole situation, it opens up that bigger conversation about genetic testing, family secrets, things people often don't want to talk about.
Yeah, the comments mentioned other stories, didn't they? Parents hiding genetic risks.
Oh, absolutely. Heartbreaking stories, parents knowing about HD or Duchenne muscular dystrophy, BRCA mutations, Brugada syndrome, and keeping it secret, causing immense pain later.
Like the woman diagnosed with HD at 28.
Yes, her parents hid the family history. It apparently tore the family apart when she found out. It raises huge ethical questions, about truth, autonomy.
And the choice about having children. That came up a lot. People deciding not to have kids because of the risk of passing something on.
Definitely. For HD, muscular dystrophy, type 1 diabetes, heart conditions. But then you also have options now like IVF with PGD, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis.
Right. Testing embryos to avoid passing on the disease even if the parent hasn't been tested themselves.
Exactly. And there's that glimmer of hope with gene therapy like AMT-130 for Huntington's and trials.
Yeah.
But still, the emotional weight of testing is massive.
But that statistic was stark. 80% of people at 50% risk for HD choose not to get tested.
It speaks volumes. And in some places, like England apparently, the testing process itself is intentionally long and involves multiple appointments. Therapy, because the implications are just so profound. It's not a simple blood test result, it's life-altering knowledge.
Okay, so that story really highlights the collision between planning, certainty, and the scary unknowns in health and relationships. But what happens when the uncertainty isn't genetic, but woven into the fabric of the relationship itself, becoming dangerous? All right, moving on to the next story.
We are taking a deep dive into a pretty wild saga. It started with what seems like a really innocent piece of laundry, and it just completely spiraled into a truly shocking display of behavior. We're looking at excerpts from a Reddit thread. It's titled, I28F found a woman's sock in my house after being away for a week, and my boyfriend, 30M, lied to me about it. But this really isn't just about a sock, is it? It gets way more complex, almost like a masterclass in how people behave under pressure.
It really does, yeah. What's so striking here is how something so small, like seemingly insignificant, just a single sock, can become the absolute tripwire. It reveals these much deeper underlying issues in a relationship, especially when someone's confronted with the truth, or at least a demand for it.
Right.
It perfectly illustrates how someone reacts to an accusation, often speaks volumes, louder than any denial sometimes. So our mission today really is to explore this whole unfolding drama, try to understand the red flags that popped up, and maybe pull out some valuable lessons about communication, trust, and how to recognize potentially dangerous behaviors.
Okay, let's dive into the details then. So our original poster, OP, she's a 28-year-old woman. She gets back home after being away for a week for work. Her boyfriend, he's 30. He'd actually been off work for most of that week. And when she gets back, she finds he's done this huge, extensive cleanup of the house. Really uncharacteristic for him. He even put away some of her laundry, which, she specifically noted was surprising because she usually had to do most of the cleaning herself.
Right. And that uncharacteristic deep clean?
Yes.
It immediately makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, was it genuinely just a helpful gesture? or was it maybe a bit more frantic? An attempt to erase some lingering presence. The comments on the Reddit thread jumped on that straight away. A lot of people saying it's a pretty common thing for a man to start cleaning when he's done something wrong. Some even speculated, maybe a bit darkly, that the affair partner had cleaned. It definitely sets an uneasy kind of stage.
Yeah, an uneasy stage that gets even more unsettling pretty quickly. So she's cleaning herself, tidying up, and she moves a shop vac that was sitting outside their bedroom door. And behind it, almost like it's tucked away, she finds this small, very clearly a women's ankle sock, a brand she'd never seen before, didn't own. You can just imagine that sinking feeling, right? That immediate sense that something is really off. So what she does is she puts the sock on a table by her bedside. Kind of clinical, just going to ask him about it later. And when she does ask him, first he claims he just didn't know whose sock it was. Total blank. But then he quickly shifts his story. Now he says, oh, he found it on the stairs and thought it was hers. And get this, he claims he placed it right there on the table where she'd already put it.
Okay, wow. So there it is, the first really clear lie. And, what's crucial here isn't just the lie itself, but what he's lying about. It's about how the sock supposedly got there, not even directly about whose sock it is yet. It's evasive. And when she calls him out on that, points out the inconsistency, he deflects again. He just blurts out, I didn't have anybody over. Which, you notice, wasn't even the question she asked him at that point. This pattern. The immediate lying, the deflection, the shifting story instead of just giving a straight answer. That's a really significant indicator in these kinds of situations. It screams avoidance.
That's such a crucial point. It's not just that he lied, but the way he did it, avoiding the actual question. How does that usually play out? What does that deflection tell us?
Well, it tells us he's trying to control the narrative, right? He's trying to protect something.
Yeah.
And that defensiveness, that unwillingness to just be straight, it only ramps up. So the next day, he wakes up, tries to cuddle her like nothing's wrong. But she's stiff, obviously still upset. She tells him, look, I'm upset you weren't honest about the sock yesterday. And he denies lying again, flat out. So she confronts him specifically. You told me to put the sock on the table, but I put it there. That's when he changes his story again. Now, the story is, oh, he found it while cleaning, just kind of tossed it aside, didn't think anything of it. And that's how it must have accidentally landed behind the shop vac. Forgotten.
Wow. The story just keeps evolving. But then it goes from shifting stories to something much scarier. He gets, in her words, super mad. He starts accusing her, saying she's always accusing him of cheating. Then he threatens to cancel their upcoming summer trip to visit her parents. And he says her friend, who was supposed to rent their house, can't rent it anymore because he'll be staying there instead. It's such a massive escalation, isn't it? All over a sock.
A terrifying escalation, absolutely.
Yes.
And this sequence, it's just textbook manipulation. Textbook gaslighting. He immediately tries to turn the tables, right? Make her feel like she's the one being unreasonable, the one causing the problem. And then he exerts control by threatening things that are important to her, the family trip, her friend's housing. It's a tactic, sometimes called derailment. The whole point is to shift her focus entirely away from his actions, his lies, and onto the consequences of his completely manufactured anger. He's making it about her supposed accusations, not his behavior.
It definitely reads that way. But, for someone listening who maybe has experienced intense anger from a partner or thinks, well, maybe he was just really stressed.
Yeah.
How do you tell the difference between like a genuine, even if unhealthy, emotional outburst and this kind of calculated tactic like gaslighting or derailment?
That is such a vital distinction to make. And what's really, really telling in this story is the sheer performative nature of the rage that follows. Like you said, he gets super mad, but then it goes way beyond that into what she calls a true meltdown. He continued to lose it. He storms towards the door, throws his own cup of coffee down the stairs, grabs an old baseball bat.
A baseball bat?
Yes, an old baseball bat. And starts hitting the step outside the door with it, all while yelling he's not fucking cheating. Then he throws his lunch all over the steps before peeling off in his truck. So think about that sequence. As many commenters on the thread pointed out, this is far beyond just losing your temper. People in the comments called it a hysterical tantrum, a full-blown meltdown, and crucially, they highlighted, this isn't how innocent people react. It feels like a display. It's about intimidation. And a really key observation that came up in the comments, notice he's destroying his own things, his coffee, his lunch, the shared steps maybe with his bat. He's not destroying her specific personal belongings. This suggests very strongly a calculated dominance display, not a genuine total loss of control. Commenters argued he's 100% in control of his actions, even in the midst of this apparent chaos. It's rage with a purpose.
Wow. Just hearing it laid out like that, You can almost feel the tension, the fear in that situation. It's hard to imagine being on the receiving end. Thankfully, the original poster's reaction was, well, pretty swift and decisive. Just 2 days after that initial post, she posted an update. Simple and direct. We broke up. And she states really clearly, it wasn't just about the sock anymore, of course not. It was about the frightening violence in his response. She recognized, she said, it wasn't the first time he'd been angry like that, but it was the first time he'd been so physical with objects, destroying things. And she didn't want to wait and see if it escalated further.
And that's such a powerful insight on her part, and so important. The partner's response to what seems like a minor discovery, the sock, becomes absolutely critical. Because as we saw here, the completely over-the-top rage, the immediate jump to, you always accuse me, the physical aggression, it strongly suggests guilt. And more than that, it suggests an attempt to regain control of the situation through fear and intimidation. It is just generally not how an innocent person, genuinely confused or wrongly accused, typically reacts. The scale is wrong.
Yeah. And it seems her story really resonated. We see other Reddit users in the comments sharing these similarly chilling stories, which just reinforces this pattern. Like one woman mentioned an ex-husband who flipped his shit over finding some granny panties in the laundry, and then actually tried them on to prove they must be his cross-dressing panties, not another woman's. Just bizarre deflection. Another mentioned a partner who broke 14 of my phones in the 16 months we were married, often during arguments or accusations. And others shared stories of partners threatening self-harm the moment they were confronted with evidence of cheating or lying. It really paints a picture of how common this kind of extreme manipulative escalation can be.
It absolutely does. And if you zoom out a bit, look at the bigger picture these anecdotes paint. It reinforces this idea. These extreme reactions often aren't about genuine confusion or even just uncontrolled anger. They seem to be, quite often, a calculated effort to silence the other person, to shut down the questions, the confrontation, through fear and intimidation. As one commenter really effectively put it, they do it to get their way, plain and simple. And there's another really disturbing observation that often comes up in these discussions. The idea that people prone to these kinds of outbursts often reserve them for their safe person. Meaning the partner, the person who they perceive, can't escape, punish them, or really hold them accountable in the same way a boss or police officer could. It's a deeply troubling power dynamic.
That safe person idea is chilling. So given that dynamic, what can we take away from the OP's actions after the breakup? She seems very practical. She mentions he's taking his things out gradually, including, sadly, one of their dogs, which she said was particularly upsetting for her, and she's changing the electronic lock code after each time he visits to collect his stuff. Crucially, she also told friends nearby what happened, and they've offered support, basically being on call if she feels unsafe at any point.
Yeah, those practical steps are so important. The fact that she immediately reached out to her local community, her friends, that is a fantastic example of proactive safety planning. Don't isolate yourself. And this whole situation, really, it also highlights the importance of maybe recognizing less obvious red flags that might have been accumulating over time. Things that seem small individually. For instance, she noted that imbalance in cleaning, I usually have to do most of the cleaning. And this was despite him having a job with a 1 week on, 1 week off schedule. So he had plenty of time off work, but the chore burdens still fell mostly on her. These small, persistent imbalances. Sometimes they can be early indicators of a lack of respect or a deeper dynamic where one person just expects the other to pick up all the slack, you know. It speaks to the underlying relationship health.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about trusting your gut when something feels big and wrong, like the sock and the meltdown. It's also about paying attention to those smaller, maybe nagging feelings along the way. This deep dive really seems to underscore that the sock itself almost becomes irrelevant, doesn't it? It's like it was just the key that unlocked this whole other level of behavior. It acts like a diagnostic tool in a way. That pattern of escalation from, subtle lies about how the sock got there to those really aggressive displays of power, it reveals a kind of blueprint for maybe recognizing dangerous behavior before it hits a full-blown crisis point. It forces you to ask, am I just looking at what he's saying, or am I looking at how he's reacting?
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. And what's really insightful here isn't just that the reaction speaks volumes, but how it does. It's a prime example of something psychologists sometimes call extinction burst behavior. You see it when someone's usual methods of control or manipulation, maybe the subtle lies, the minor deflections, suddenly aren't working anymore. They're being cornered. The OP wasn't backing down about the sock story changing. So what do? They escalate their tactics dramatically, suddenly. It's like a desperate, last-ditch effort to regain control, recognizing that sudden, totally disproportionate jump in anger or aggression, especially when they feel cornered. That can be a much more reliable red flag than any single lie on its own. It's the moment they might show their true colors because the usual mask slipped.
So this deep dive into the curious case of the calamitous couple's sock, it really does show how the absolute smallest details can end up revealing the biggest truths about a relationship. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that while, the missing sock was the catalyst, the story very quickly became about so much more. About lies, about control, and about emotional and ultimately physical intimidation.
It really is, and it serves as such a stark reminder of why it's so critical to pay attention, not just to the words people say, but to their actual behavior, especially when they're under pressure or when they're confronted. The way someone reacts when they feel caught or exposed, that can honestly be the clearest, loudest warning sign you will ever get about who they really are.
Yeah. And maybe the biggest takeaway for you listening to this is something like this. When a situation escalates from a simple logical question about a misplaced sock to someone wielding a baseball bat in a tantrum, it is absolutely never, ever really about the sock at all. It's about a much deeper pattern of behavior, a willingness to use intimidation, fear, and control. And recognizing that pattern early, that can make all the difference in keeping yourself safe.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today. We hope it gave you plenty to consider.